Well, we have essential services legislation to ensure that in situations where there is an imminent danger or in life-threatening situations, there's no obstacles to the people getting the services they need. Well, the amendment or the new legislation that Mayor Ford is attempting to get the provincial government to implement, it really deals with a situation outside of that imminent danger. It deals with the situations outside of a dangerous situation and deals more with a lack or a loss of convenience with people and public transit. It doesn't. There's not a life-threatening situation where these legislations, where it be fire departments or police services or hospitals, there would typically be that legislation. This is more legislation that goes to the heart of taking away the working men and women's rights at the TTC to collectively determine their own destiny. Well, I think the amendments are being made, and contrary to what Mayor Ford and the chair of the TTC would state, is not for a protection or a continuity of service. I think this is a political ideology that's bent on taking away the working men and women of the City of Toronto and anybody that's attached to the City of Toronto, taking away their rights to collectively bargain. I think this is a full-out attack on unions, the workers that work at the various institutions throughout the city, and the organizations that represent those workers. Well, what binding arbitration says is that instead of the working people and our members having the ability to vote and to collectively determine their own destiny, that their destiny and their working conditions and their wages and their benefits and their work life is basically placed into the hands of a single person that's going to autocratically decide what is going to be best for them. It'll be based on submissions by either the parties, by the union and by the employer, but essentially takes the ability of the people that actually work at these facilities and work in these institutions to collectively decide on their own what they will or will not accept. Workers have had the right to withhold their labor when they've gotten to a situation through collective bargaining when they haven't been able to achieve through a negotiation process the wants and needs that they're looking for, whether that be wages or benefits or working conditions. The workers have always had the ability to say, and we will withhold our labor if we are not able to achieve this. The reality is that 99.4% of all collective agreements in the province over the last couple of years have been settled without workers having to withhold their labors, contrary to some of the beliefs out there that unions and the members of those unions are constantly on strike. This is just not the case. The case with the Toronto Transit Commission is that in the last 30 years there have been very few days that have been lost due to a labor stoppage. The process has worked. The two parties have gone to the bargaining table. They have negotiated fair and equitable collective agreements that have been voted and ratified by the workers at the Commission. And there's absolutely no need to make this an essential service where that process and that has worked and has been in place for many decades, has worked properly, has worked the way it was supposed to work, and the parties have been able to achieve collective agreements time and time again. Very few times has it ever resulted in a loss of work or a loss of services through the workers at the TTC withholding their labor. On April 9th, there's going to be a rally that's going to be taking place. That's going to be made up of labor, of people on the streets, of community organizations to push back against the agenda that's obviously being fostered through City Hall and Mayor Rob Ford. It's very important that every working man and woman attend these rallies. This is just the legislation that's being imposed upon the working people at the Toronto Transit Commission is just the thin edge of the wedge. This is something that has dire consequences for every, not only public sector worker, but private sector worker as well. This could spread from, it starts in Toronto today. This could head to Hamilton tomorrow. It could be in Ottawa. It could be in your city. Not just the public service workers. This isn't just about TTC workers. This is about fundamental rights of working men and women to collectively bargain for their own destiny. And that thin edge of the wedge is to chip away at those rights. And if we let him get away with it here, then be very, very, very careful, my friends, because it's coming to your door soon.